G'day guys, welcome back to another Bitcoin video. First and foremost, apologies for the little specks that might come up on my face here. I need to get better lighting for this green screen. But other than that, we're going to jump straight into the Bitcoin video. We made a video yesterday on Bitcoin at around this region here at the rejection of this yellow line. And that video was made around 22.7k. We said in that video, we've dropped down on Bitcoin. We're seeing a resistance support flip. We'll probably go down further. And we did in fact go down further. And this is after me saying for weeks that this consolidation region here has been bearish due to this ascending broadening wedge formation, and we've finally come down. We've finally seen a correction. However, some people might be confused. Well, Wolf, why aren't we dropping faster than this? We've dropped pretty fast, but why are we finding support here? What is this support zone? And unfortunately and unexpectedly, we have found support here, and it's very strong support actually, because the support is supported by this descending wedge formation on the weekly chart. So we'll look at that in a second. But first and foremost, what has happened here for Bitcoin? Well, we dropped below the wedge on the RSI, the 4-hourly chart. We're coming back up. We're seeing some sort of resistance support flip from that wedge in the RSI. Eventually, we'll break back above it just because we'll have to, because the RSI will reach zero. But for the meantime, it's bearish. We've seen a massive cup formation here for Bitcoin as well. And so that's bearish as well after dropping down from the ascending broadening wedge. And the targeted move, the measured move for that ascending broadening wedge formation from first retest of the top to first retest of the bottom, applied to the breakout point, was around this region. So the targeted move targeted like 2.3k. We've come down to, 21.3k. We've come down to 21.6. We're pretty close to where the target was. I would consider that wedge to be completed at this point. So at this point, we can go ahead and actually delete that wedge. I'm going to keep in the bottom line of the wedge though. The bottom line of the wedge is going to remain there because that might act as resistance in the future. So it's worth actually keeping that in. As for the top line of the wedge, that is ascending quite rapidly. I don't think we'll be retesting that again. But the bottom line of the wedge is worth keeping in. So we can, again, we might come back up and use it as resistance in the future. So we'll keep that in the screen here. But what you'll actually notice is that we had this pink line, right? So the range we determined was essentially this. The range was between 25k and 21.9k. That was the range between these two pink lines. 25k being the top of the range where a bunch of moving averages are converging into each other, such as the 50-week SMA and 200-week SMA, which is seeing a death cross, by the way. If you want to find out more information on that, check out the video I did a few days ago. I don't think it's particularly important. And that's the top of the range. And the bottom of the range was identified via a visual kind of identification of a resistance zone. As you can see, 21.9k on the screen here is a pretty strong visual resistance. And moving all the way back to even 2020, we can see that 21.9k, let me just find it here, was also a support zone back in the day in 2020 December. So that was a major zone. We lost 21.9k. So we broke down from the range that I determined. Now the problem is we haven't been moving downwards, and we've actually found new support. And the new support we found stems from 21.6k. What you can see is 21.6k is the peak we saw on this move upwards in mid-January before we saw this peak here. So we've found support on that low, and what we've seen now is a massive kind of resistance support flip of that support zone. Now, it is worth noting, we are still in a bearish structure of Bitcoin. We're still in the short term. We're still seeing this massive head formation, but at this point in time, the drop seems to be over. So the question is, could this be the bottom? And, I personally think, after such a big move upwards, 55% move upwards, seeing a correction of what did we see? A correction of, let's go ahead and measure it out, 10% is a little bit of a pathetic correction, but unfortunately can't ignore TA here. There is a chance that was it. There is a chance that was all the correction we're going to see. And, looking at other charts, which we'll look at in a second, that is relatively supported. Now, at this point in time, though, it's obvious that the drop isn't confirmed to be over yet. We can't look at, we can't look at 12 hours of consolidation, because that's 3 4-hourly candles, and say, oh yeah, the drop's over. We need more evidence. But we can look at other data and say this is in fact a very strong support zone. Now, 21.6k in itself, it is pretty strong support. I'm circling a few zones here which have held for support in the past and resistance. Okay, it is pretty strong. We've seen it act as support and resistance a couple of times in the past. So it is a support zone, and it is worth, noting. But that alone wouldn't be enough to hold Bitcoin upwards after such a big pump and after such a much needed drop. What is interesting though is if we flip over to the weekly chart, what we can see is this massive descending wedge formation, this huge descending wedge formation. This descending wedge formation that was 2 years long, right? This is a 24-month descending wedge on the logarithmic weekly chart, has been flipped, okay? So we broke to the upside, right? And during this correction, we've actually come back down and we're holding support on the top of that wedge. Now, that is something that's interesting because that very well could mark a bottom. At this point in time, I would say it is too risky to be in short positions for Bitcoin because we're on support from the wedge. Now, I know this is contradicting what I said yesterday, and I completely understand that, and people might be frustrated by that, but I simply didn't see this wedge at this point in time. I didn't see this wedge in this price level. I looked at the charts this morning, I'm thinking, oh gosh, we're actually on support here for Bitcoin on this wedge. So that's something we definitely need to watch. There is a chance we hold this wedge, looking at that, and then we're looking at total cryptocurrency market cap as well. Total cryptocurrency market cap is on support as well. It's on support at this zone at 966 billion. Ethereum is on support. Yes, it's broken down from ascending channel formation, but it's basically on support here at 1500. And the DXY is still kind of holding support as well. So that could be a bearish case for Bitcoin. We could very well jump back up in the DXY, and that will lead to a dump for Bitcoin. But at this point, that's still holding support. And again, the S&P 500 has just freshly lost support. Okay, so look. There's a couple things here, and it's very complicated, and this is why I don't like being in a trade right now. And in fact, the short-term TA has been complicated for the entirety of 2023. It's really ugly. I know people are getting pissed off. It's ugly. I don't like it. I think the short-term TA is disgusting. It's been disgusting for a while. It's been very hard to decipher. But ultimately, this is the case we're in right now. The DXY says dump, okay? The S&P 500 says dump, but the total cryptocurrency market cap is at support, and Ethereum's at support, and Bitcoin's at support. So there's mixed flags. There's mixed signals everywhere. Now, if I had to follow the short-term TA, I would say Bitcoin drops here. But the fact that we're on support, the fact that we've got the total cryptocurrency market cap on support, Ethereum at support, Bitcoin on this weekly wedge support, means that we could actually be seeing, and this is something I talked about yesterday, an inverted cup and handle formation, okay? Now, there's a couple things this formation would do. Now, this is highly speculative, right? But there's a couple things this formation would do, okay? We're on support. Okay, when you're on support, you generally bounce. Okay, we're on support on short term, we're on support on long term. When you're on support, you generally bounce. If we bounced here, that would do two things. It would not only validate the TA, because the TA says we're on support, it would also give Bitcoin time. And what this means is that if we need to see more of a correction, which I believe we do, this descending channel wedge line is moving downwards. If Bitcoin consolidates here for a bit, say a week or so, that gives this wedge time to move downwards further, which gives Bitcoin more space to move downwards without being on support. I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes perfect sense to me. The longer we consolidate without dropping, okay, the further down this wedge line can move, which means the further down Bitcoin can go without finding major support on the wedge, which means if we consolidate here, if we form an inverted cup and handle formation, which I see as relatively likely, that means we can go down further in the future while maintaining healthy structure for Bitcoin. If we drop down right now, if we drop down today, tomorrow, the next day, we drop down right now, we will drop through this wedge, and that will be bearish for Bitcoin because that means this was a failed breakout. Okay, we don't want to see that. We want to see macro strength. So the best thing Bitcoin can do right now, I'll tell you right now, the best thing Bitcoin can do, in my opinion, is retrace. But before we retrace, we need to consolidate upwards slightly, give the Bitcoin weekly chart time, this wedge to go downwards so we have more room to move downwards in the future, and then drop downwards later in the month and see that correction, and potentially in mid-March or something like that, we can start going up again. That, in my opinion, would be the healthiest structure for Bitcoin right now. So yes, I wouldn't be, I should say no, I wouldn't be in shorts right now. I know yesterday I said short when we were going below 21.9k. I don't think that remains valid now that we're on support so close to 21.9k. I think that weekly chart support is they're very much worth waiting for a break for. So yeah, I'm not a big believer in short-term trading Bitcoin right now. I don't think it's very safe. I think there's too many conflicting factors. But I thought I'd make this video because, a lot of people are expecting, based on what I said, a big drop once we drop 21.9k, but that's simply not the case anymore. It's like, yeah, we could drop, but if we drop, we're crushing our macro structure. We don't want to drop right now. We don't actually want to drop. If we drop, we fall back into this wedge. That's crushing that macro structure. This wedge breakout is a big part of why I'm macro bullish on Bitcoin. It's not the most important part. Obviously, the most important part is 4-year cycle theory, and obviously this 8-year uptrending support line in yellow. But it's one of the parts, so we don't want to be breaking below that wedge again. Right now, if we flip this wedge, okay, and we touch it, we go for support, we consolidate a little bit, potentially go down later, that would count as a resistance support flip, okay, and that would be extremely bullish for macro structure. So, yeah, on support right now for Bitcoin. I know it's unexpected. It was unexpected to me as well. As I said, I woke up this morning, checked the charts, and only just realized it. Even as analysts, even as professional analysts, I stare at the charts 10 hours a day. Sometimes we can miss things, but the most important thing is we know what's happening now, and we're aware of the situation. So now we're aware of the situation again, and we've got a new thing to watch, and what we need to watch now is that wedge formation. So let's keep an eye on it, guys. there's really not much to say other than that. I do want to end the video by talking about a few things. So first of all, Bitget Exchange, you guys know the spiel by now. Wolves of Crypto YouTube channel is sponsored by the Bitget Exchange. Well, I suppose it's not really sponsorship. We're in partnership, I should say, with the Bitget Exchange. I reached out. I actually was the one who started this partnership because I really like the exchange. I've used it for about a year now, and I found it very, very good. 5 times lower fees than Binance. We had no spot fees for many, many months. Major kind of sponsorships with Messi, like the football player, FIFA World Cup kind of stuff. Huge stuff there. They've released their reserves. They've got all that information out. They've got a protection fund, which means if the exchange goes down or something happens to your account, you can get reimbursed on your funds that you had in the account. Many, many reasons to sign up to Bitget. On top of that, if you sign up using my referral link, you get a 15% discount on trading fees and also access to exclusive rewards. That is the best way you can help the channel, and it's completely free. So go ahead and sign up to the Bitget Exchange. And then if you want to learn how to trade, you want to take your trading to the next level, become a trader, 10-unit course, the Crypto Academy. It's a university-style course developed by myself and Mega Whale Crypto, who's a fellow analyst within the cryptocurrency space. And you can check all of that out in the link in the pinned comment and description. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll catch you in the next video.